Hello, and welcome to the Power of First program. As part of Deloitte's management consulting partnership with the International Olympic Committee, we're thrilled to be on the ground at the Olympic Games in Paris 2024. My name is Jessica Kosmowski, and I am the Ecosystems and Alliance Leader across all of Deloitte. I'm joined by Mark Lilly, a Global Technology Strategy and Transformation Leader from the UK, Gavin McAlpine, Olympic Games Delivery Associate Director from the IOC, or the International Olympic Committee, and Chris Payne, who leads Knowledge and Learning and is Associate Director at the IOC Committee. This is another Power of Firsts panel. Today, we're diving into the knowledge, insights, and learning and discussing the importance of learning from previous Olympics for OCOGs and common challenges and barriers organizing committees face when executing an Olympic and Paralympic Games. So let's get started. Welcome, everybody, to Paris. It's so great to be with you.
Thank you.
I'd like to kick this first to Gavin and Chris. So why is the transfer of knowledge and insights and helping other Olympic organizing committees so important to you and the broader Olympic movement?
It's really important for the IOC for one simple reason. Each host is delivering the Games for the first time. So we at the IOC have a really important role to play to help them learn what to do and how to do that and do so in as efficient a way as possible. But it's also really important that the IOC learns from each edition of the Games, and that's the way in which we are able to continuously improve the product, the experience, as well as the impact that the Games has.
Absolutely.
The thing I would like to emphasize is the cost to the organizing committee of not taking up all of the opportunities it has to learn. We provide all kinds of different opportunities for them to learn, and if they don't really take time out, particularly in the early years when they're procuring big, complex services to deliver, when the Games comes along, the cost can be significant if they miss the opportunities to learn before doing that procurement. And I think there's a very clear correlation in our experience between, learning and cost efficiency when the Games actually come along. And the really smart OCOGs optimize all of the opportunities to learn.
Makes sense. Let's come back through this way because you're touching on what I'd love to hit on next. So what makes learning and upskilling so unique and different in the context of course, the Olympics and the Paralympics Games?
I mean, the Games is, 26, 28 consecutive World Championships in a 2-week period, all of the different overlay that's required to support the Games, an incredibly complex technology solution, media solutions, transport solutions, security solutions, and you can't really unpick the scale of that and the complexity of that without placing a focus on learning, particularly before they're expected to deliver against particular milestones. It's a linear, project management exercise, and each milestone on that line has to have learning before it to be delivered very efficiently.
Is linear with a huge uptick.
Absolutely, the scale
is incredible.
Both the actual physical numbers, but also the scalability challenges that they face as the organization grows in the last few years is huge.
Chris, your thoughts? Or sorry, Gavin, your thoughts?
We're doing it for the first time. So although there's an incredible amount of experience in the system, if you consider the contributions from our top partners, Olympic Broadcasting Services, nobody has delivered this Games in Paris in 2024. And so delivery requires the strongest of partnerships across this diverse ecosystem, everybody working together towards one common goal. If you consider an organizing committee's challenge, it is effectively a startup organization, but with a very fixed deadline and the eyes of the world, the global spotlight on their delivery 7 years from the point at which they are awarded the Games. So there's an incredible challenge to actually build the required competence, but also confidence to face not everything, but anything that could happen in the games. And with, to Chris's point, operations which are as diverse as ours, not just in the competition venues, but also across transport, logistics, security, is really vast in terms of what we mean by getting ready for the games.
Well, you're doing a fantastic job. Absolutely. It's incredible here in Paris. Mark, let's pivot. What are some common challenges you've experienced or observed for organizing committees? I know you've seen many Olympics through your day.
Yeah, I worked with Chris and Gavin on London 2012, which was an extraordinary games. As Gavin was saying, this is a unique organisation. You know, you are a total startup. You've shifted from selling the concept of the legacy and how a particular host city can transform and elevate the Olympic movement that's unique to that city, to then turning in through a whole series of different, you know, it's a life cycle, it's a known life cycle, but with very different competencies. And there's the opportunity to get it wrong by hiring the wrong people at the wrong time, making the wrong decisions, whether it's around big contracts that Chris highlighted or around broader partnerships. And I think it's really understanding what roles people have during that life cycle that's unique. I mean, obviously we're here in Paris now and it's all about games time operations. So ahead of that was all about operational readiness and very, very different to, you know, Brisbane, 8 years out from now, a startup really thinking about the legacy, the planning, the infrastructure, the stakeholder management, the governance and all those sorts of different aspects. So it's really working in partnership throughout that life cycle to help make the right decisions.
Unbelievable. Gavin, thoughts?
No, I think Mark's covered it really well. The numbers speak for themselves in terms of the scale. Paris 2024 has not only 4,500 paid staff, they have 30,000 volunteers working on the Olympic Games and over 100,000 contractors. So it's really mind-blowing when you consider the scale and how, exactly as Mark said, you get those people in the right place at the right time, not doing it too early because there's a huge cost involved with that. But on the flip side, hire people too late. If you don't have in place effective programs to acquire skills and knowledge, you'll absolutely see that in the quality of operations which are run.
Couldn't agree more. Any additional thoughts?
Yeah, a couple. I think in terms of challenges, we see time and time again that good quality knowledge and learning, it really travels via language. So the organizing committees must take the time to really understand the language of the Olympic Games. That can be particularly challenging in a very diverse cultural environment, lots of different places we do the games. You know, another very common thing is that the games is so big and so complex that there will be things going wrong. It's inevitable. And you want them to have sufficient learning to be able to kind of lift the train gently back onto the tracks and set it on its way again without too much disruption. I think that's a common challenge that we see quite often. The last thing I would emphasize is that as the organizing committee grows, community is really important. Creating the right communities for good quality exchange, dialogue, sharing between each other, developing a passion for learning and sharing so that that knowledge and that learning can flow through the organization. I think that's a challenging area sometimes, lots of different stakeholders coming in with different corporate cultures, for example. So getting that community aspect right in the very early years to support the learning, I think is really important and quite often challenging.
I couldn't agree more. And you know, the agility that the Paris team has been incredible here on the ground. So thank you for all that you've done to help them get prepared for that. And of course, we're running summer games as well as winter games and all kinds of different things around the calendar. When should organizing committees start thinking about upskilling and learning for current and the future staff, considering all these moving parts? Chris, thoughts on that?
There has to be right at the outset the right ratio between building and buying experience.
Yeah.
They have to understand their own context, their own market, what the workforce is that's available. We see organizing committees predominantly buying, we see organizing committees predominantly building. I think getting that balance right is really critical in the early years. I think there's a lot of new capabilities coming on, the growing importance of data, data engineering, data science to support some of the planning cycles. So I think doing really good quality capability mapping right at the beginning against the requirements of the final delivery is really absolutely critical.
I think learning, just to add, I think learning is deeply cultural. You need to have if your ambition is to be continuously learning as an organisation, which every world-class organisation should be continuously learning, continuously getting better. You want to get the right insights in order for everyone to develop and grow. It really does come from the top as well, around encouraging that, incentivising that. And to me, that's, I mean, to your point, Chris, it's about how in a modern day, people can learn in the way that they want, personalised, e-learning on a phone. Something we talked about, Gavin, isn't it? If you've got someone, a venue manager, doing a classroom-based training may not be the right thing. They may want to get shorts on their phone just to get that little nudge of how they should be thinking about things.
I completely agree. Getting it right from the very beginning of the OCOG journey and at the very top of the organisation is essential, to your point, to set the right culture within the organisation. But there's a really important piece around behaviours. You mentioned agility. We work very much with the leadership teams and all of the organising committees to help them as leadership be agile, be collaborative, to understand the value of teamwork, etc. Because it comes back to that point around not being able to prepare for absolutely everything that will happen, and building that muscle memory to be able to pivot many times a day in the way that an athlete does as well. So really important to get that right at the beginning of the journey. It's much harder if you try to develop those behaviours in the final stretch.
Talk to us a little bit about the volunteers. There's vastly more volunteers than employees when it's actual game time. How do you bring them along the journey during all this magic and pivoting?
Well, anybody who's been fortunate enough to go to any of the venues here in Paris has seen the incredibly infectious smiles, the spirit, and there really is a very unique contribution that the volunteers bring to every games. It's incredibly important to make sure that those people are motivated and well trained. Here in Paris, there was a big event where all of the volunteers were brought together in the La Défense Arena for a big motivational event. But it actually starts with having roles which have purpose. Actually, Paris, with 30,000 volunteers for the Olympic Games, has quite a few less than London 2012 did. And that's part of the efforts that we've made over the years to optimise. Doing so in a way which does not impact on the services which are delivered, but making sure that those roles are meaningful, there's a purpose to them, and that's the first way to ensure that people are motivated.
Absolutely. I mean, from my perspective, one of the most important things is that the growth, including the arrival of all the volunteers, is supported by what we call train the trainer methodology. So the organising committee understanding where its little nuggets of knowledge are and placing those inside the volunteer communities to help those volunteers really get up to speed and hit the ground running, because they don't have much time. The other thing is the attitude, the sort of culture of the organisation that's pushed to the volunteers, and their attitude towards providing a service, understanding that some things may go wrong, they have to persevere and so on. I think that's really important, and I think the attitude of the volunteers here has been absolutely outstanding.
Been wonderful, haven't they? They're the front line of the customer experience, aren't they? As a fan, if you if you go to a shop, have any customer experience, the front of house is really important, and that's whether you're leaving the transport and wanting to find your direction or where to sit in the venue, it's absolutely crucial.
Yeah, I mean, of course, nearly everybody that I've interacted with during my time here has been volunteers, and you would never know the difference between a volunteer or employee, because they are very, very skilled. They know what they're doing. They do have huge smiles on their face because they're so proud to be a part of this movement. It's incredible. It's incredible the way that you touch so many more people beyond the athletes and the billions of viewers around the world. But with the volunteers, it's just another way to really reach into the communities. Very exciting. Yeah,
the one other thing I would emphasize is that I've met so many volunteers who come from all four corners of the country. So the volunteer program is a wonderful way to engage more than just the city, right? The whole nation can have an opportunity to be fully engaged with the actual event happening on the ground. In fact, most of the people I've encountered are not from Paris. They're from Brittany, from the Massif Central, from the south, wherever. And so I think that national pride that comes through with this with the volunteer community is also significant.
It's fantastic. So let's pivot. The world changes all the time. There's all kinds of technological advancements. Things are moving. So there's a core of what needs to stay the same, of course, with every one of these moments. But there's also things that need to change and pivot. So do you have some specific examples of some creative or innovative tools that you're implementing and how you're transferring insights and learnings? And also a little bit about things that you're constantly evolving on.
We think often about the different people we work with in different organising committees across the world. One of the great things about organising committees is they're often very young organisations. But ultimately, if we're trying to engage a 25-year-old who's working in transport in Los Angeles, for me, we have to be thinking about what is the content that that person is consuming on their mobile on the way into work in the morning. And I don't think it's unrealistic to set ourselves with an ambition that we can create content that is as engaging as what they would choose to consume in their free time. It's just content that helps them to be able to perform their roles. So that's very much part of our focus. There's loads that we can do with tech-enabled experiences. There's also a lot that we do with just very traditional offline experiences. So we have a program of training and exercises where we simulate 24 hours in the games and really put people at all levels, from executives to the managers in the operation centers, through their paces. Role play, people putting in phone calls, responding to simulated TV news reports. So they're really fun and create really valuable experiences for people to learn from.
Well, the good news is people do sleep at night, so we've got that going for us. Chris, any additional thoughts?
Yeah, I would really like to emphasize AI. We have a huge amount of structured data. We're constantly collecting it. And I think we have a pretty good understanding of how we can use that data to support the planning cycles as the organizing committees grow. But we also have an enormous amount of unstructured data. We collect thousands of documents. We do thousands of different filmed interviews and so on. We have the transcripts of those. We have a huge library of unstructured data, and I think AI, particularly sort of an LLM solution. In fact, we're piloting one with Deloitte at the moment. I think that has enormous potential to unlock value for the organizing committees and really help them get under the skin of our rich library of content and support them as they grow.
I mean, that circles right back to your original point about how many different games within the games are happening, and all the data around all those games, around every single aspect, is mind-blowing. And to get people access to that, to be able to commentate and do things like that in a real-time fashion is pretty incredible. Great opportunity. So, rapid fashion. Few thoughts. What should organizing committees, whether they're 7 years out or 1 year out, be doing? What should they be thinking about right now as they think about learning? I'll start with Gavin.
I think I think it's about having a really clear strategy for delivery. That might sound obvious, but it goes way beyond just delivering the sport competition over the 17 days of the games. It has to be a very clear strategy for how the games will have maximum impact, how we will engage the population, and how we deliver in an efficient and effective way. Having that clear strategy and building an effective organization to deliver on it is number one. And there's no doubt that learning is a really fundamental enabler of that. So that is a lot of the focus that we put on organizers at the very beginning of their journey, and then help to refresh that strategy at different stages throughout.
Mark, quick thoughts?
Yeah, quick thoughts. I think it's about really understanding the different user groups across the life cycle, different customer groups, really understanding their needs, what they need when, to make what decisions. Really, really being super clear on that. So if you are, as we were saying earlier, Brisbane, 8 years out, at the highest level, it's the same set of stakeholders, but athletes are incredibly important at Paris right here. But if you're 8 years out, it's more around the overall overlay, the government stakeholder alignment, relationships with the broad international federations, getting the right strategy right. It's different things at different stages of the games. And for me, it's really understanding those different user groups, being clinical about how the decisions they need to make and making sure that their experience at the games time, whether it's the press, it's the athletes, it's the fans, it's people at home, wherever it may be, really are supported with the best possible experience.
Chris, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, the one that I would like to emphasize is the games is a continuum. We already know that we're going to be working with 2030 and others in the future. We see them coming. And the criticality of contributing to the evolution of the games within the organizing committees is something that they can never frankly do enough of from my perspective. So the notion of paying it forward and taking the time out, not just to absorb what we can do to help them and what they can do to help themselves obviously, but taking some time out to reflect on how they're going to pay it forward, help the model grow and evolve, and help future games be successful.
That's a beautiful last thought. Thank you for that. And on behalf of Deloitte, I'd like to thank all of you for being with us today to talk about this important topic. We've heard several interesting themes today during our conversation on how OCOGs can share their insights and learnings. Super exciting. And I'm just looking forward to hearing more from you over the next few days, and of course paying it forward to the next set of OCOGs. Congratulations, team.
Thank you. Thank you.
Everything from paying it forward to harvesting new technology to tried and true things that can happen across the entire life cycle of the game. It's fantastic. If you'd like to watch this panel playback and others, head over to LinkedIn Live. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back soon. Thank you.